Hey everybody, joining us today, the amazing Bill Fore, Mutiny Within. How are you doing, man?
Hello, I'm alive, I'm breathing, I'm here, I'm doing well.
Well, I'm honored to get a chance to chat with you again. It's been a little while. How's everything in your world?
Everything in my world is great. It's been a couple of years since we chatted last. I guess that was like for the Synchronicity second release. That was a few years ago now.
At least. So I'd say Happy President's Day, but I'm not sure I can say that with a straight face, so...
Nah. I mean, you can still say it, but hey, Happy President, Happy Arbor Day, Happy fucking whatever. It's another fucking day. Happy President's Day, everybody.
Absolutely. All right, so before we get going, I was just thinking about this, a little bit of trivia for the listeners.
Sure.
Metalholic issued exactly 2 monthly print editions of the magazine back in 2010, and then we gave it up because it was too fucking expensive. But Mutiny Within was on the second and last cover. I think it was July 2010, if memory serves.
Yes. Wait, I absolutely forget 100% what it looked like, but I do recall.
It was a burgundy cover, and I think you guys were all sitting on a couch. I think we even...
Sitting on a couch, yes,
yeah.
And I had short hair.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I remember it. I remember it well.
All right, so congratulations on the new album, Origins, which dropped on the 10th. You guys put it...
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys put it together as a quartet again, but it doesn't feel like any of the pieces are missing when you listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, thank God for that, because that's kind of how we envisioned it. Brandon is doing his own thing. He's going, Rutgers Business School. He's out. He's doing, his whole career kind of lifestyle now, and he had to, shy away from music. So Dan took over, all guitar duties, and he bared the burden of taking on keys because Drew is no longer with us, and,
right.
The keys were a big part of our sound. So Dan, being the wizard he's become, got his whole setup going on with Omnisphere and all the Hans Zimmer plug-ins. It's an extremely, extremely extensive setup he's got. So he really came to the plate with, the programming of and just playing of the synths and the pianos and everything. You hear choirs, you hear, chanting, you hear a lot of crazy stuff going on. So hats off to Dan as well for that. But yeah, it was just the four of us, me, Chris, AJ, and Dan.
Yeah, well, and each of you did a remarkable job on this record, as you always do. And it's funny because you're spread all over the sphere there, so to speak, and yet you guys make it cohesive. Yeah,
I mean, we're spread across, not only we're from two countries, but, we're spread across America as well. So Chris is over in England. Dan is here now in Florida. AJ is in Pennsylvania, and I'm in New Jersey. So we made the album from two countries, 3 different states in America and, over in England. So that's just, the name of the game now in the music industry is if you don't get the luxury of being able to incessantly tour like we used to and, things of that nature, you just got to, do it yourself. And if you have the means, then there's really no excuse to, not put out material other than if you just don't want to do it anymore,
True. And from everything I've heard, it will not be as long between Mutiny Within albums. But let's talk about the new one. Origins feels a little more, as I just said, cohesive to my ear than Synchronicity did, which I enjoyed. But this seems like more of a natural extension of the debut record. Am I crazy?
You're not crazy. You're spot on. The second album, a lot of the songs, were written, fleshed out, after the initial album had come out and we did our touring. I left the band briefly. We did our own thing, kind of broke up, but not really. And they just had all these songs, shelved. And it was just a shame not to do anything with them. So, when I came back into the fold, me and the guys, we had a talk. We're better friends now than ever. And we wanted to put out more material. That being said, Chris's setup in England, being that he produces and, mixes and masters it all, does all the editing and such. His setup at that time was very limited. So I think he was in the midst of moving. So he had a very limited amount of technology to use. So that's where I guess it got not lost in translation, but it has a different feel. This one, Origins, we tried to go back to the roots with certain things, but then we also amped it up further than we ever have in certain areas. We have faster, things on this album now. We have heavier things on this album. We have a lot of even gothic sounding, choir and chanting style things. So we tried to incorporate some new stuff. And, we don't necessarily have anybody telling us what should go there or how long that part should be or lessen the double bass. Like there's no record label. So we're doing what we want with our music, and that's basically it. So this new album is basically an extension of just what we wanted to do as a band. We weren't rushed, we weren't pressed for time, we weren't limited to our capabilities in terms of equipment. So we really just let it all hang out on this one, and we all had a great time doing it.
Yeah, I think it's your most complete album so far, but it's interesting. You go back and we talk about that first album, and you guys recorded I think 50 demos or something, 50 different tracks for that album. Did any of that stuff eventually make itself onto Synchronicity, or are any of those somehow bits and pieces on the Origins album?
That is such a good question. We did. We went into the first album. We went to Audioheimer Studios with Jason Sukoff in Florida with 50 demo songs, and we had to narrow that down to 15, and then 12, and then 10. For the regular album, and some B-sides or some special release. So we basically boiled down 50 songs to 10 or 12. That being said, there was a lot of leftover, and it wasn't that we didn't like them. We loved every song, but you can't put 50 songs on an album, so you got to do what you have to do. So, off the top of my head, I'm sure there are a couple riffs here and there, a couple, backbone areas and chunks to songs that did bleed through to this new one. But for the most part, this new album, that's why it was entitled Origins, because it was an idea let's give the fans another album, but old demos and B-sides. So it's funny you say we had the 50 demo songs. A lot of those were going to be on Origins. But after we had, and we're going to do a couple new songs as well as a little sweetener. After we did those sweeteners, we're like, let's just do a new album. And we're like, okay. So it eventually became, it was going to be an EP kind of album with maybe 2 new songs and 7 or 8 demo songs for the fans, the hardcore fans, but then that just morphed into let's just make a brand new album. And, after that, in the reception, we kind of, wanted to keep this formula going and not fall off the face of the planet for another 4 years and not put out an album. So we're going to try a new method, a new style of doing this, and really try and stay on, the top of people's interests, not to just stay relevant, but we want to put out, an album every year or every 2 years or what have you, whatever's normal. We don't want to, we just don't want to fall off the face of the earth again. And plus we just love making the music, and we all are more, set in our lives to where we can take those liberties and, say on a Saturday, I'll track some drums and then, whatever. We're all comfortable enough in our lives, in our own skin now to, be able to take that plunge and take the time to, just do this because we love doing it. That's basically why we came back. So
there's a lot of diversity on this album. It's the first song that we got to listen to was Archetype of Destruction, which is absolutely crushing.
Yeah, that's probably one of my favorites so far.
And then conversely, Justify, which I think was the second teaser track, very much has that classic Mutiny Within vibe to it. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, our Archetype of Destruction is funny. If you heard what that song sounded like, you'd be blown away because it sounded zero like what it does now. It was a very slower beat. It was not even at all close to what it is. It kind of morphed into it was almost my homage to Dirk Verburen of Soilwork. If you're familiar with the song Late for the Kill, Early for the Slaughter, it's just a fast, insane song throughout the entire thing. And that's kind of what Archetype turned into. It was, wrapping up. We were like, all right, the track listing. And then we're like, you know what? This song sounds too slow. It sounds too slow moving. It doesn't get to the point. And that eventually morphed into starting the song with a blast beat. So that's basically where that happened. And I snuck in a gravity blast in there for all my drummer friends out there. There's a gravity blast in that song, so that was a high moment in my life there.
I was just going to say gravity blast.
Of course, it had to go. It had to go there.
And that sort of segues into what I was going to ask you: is how much did these songs evolve as you were making the record?
It was just a very organic process, but still a process nonetheless. we, like I said, we didn't really get to sit with each other and bounce ideas off each other in a room like a normal band may do, and then flesh it out and practice it. So that could be a negative, but it could also be a positive because, in a sense, I'm sitting here in my own little home studio, behind my drums, and I don't have anybody telling me or suggesting to me what should go there or what may go there. So for this album, I feel like that kind of helped us because it gave us room to breathe, and it gave us, we could spread our wings a little bit musically. So where one verse may have been, deemed inappropriate to put there, I just recorded it anyway, how I did, and sent it. And, I feel like that's the real energy that came from this album and the way that it was, meshed together that way. We kind of all had the luxury of playing around, experimenting, putting a gravity blast on a verse, you know what I mean? It's just, it was a different process because, you do usually get a demo, you practice it, hey, change that part, change that part. There wasn't much of that. Of course, there was back and forth digitally through, conference phone calls and emails here and there. But, I mean, for the most part, we got to hang out and experiment. Like, listen to Dan. We didn't say in every single song, oh, we want a choir sound in the background here, or we want some Dimmu Borgir sounding or some Dream Theater sounding keys. It was basically Dan sitting behind his computer and all his, programming and equipment and experimenting and seeing what came out. And I think that what came out was, in my opinion, this is my favorite album. I mean, our first album was my favorite up until now. And this one is just, it's a real testament to who we've kind of become in our career at this point,
Well, and just touching on what you were just talking about, I think you guys each working on your own in your own spaces allows you guys to sort of stretch out your own ability to innovate, which has added to this album.
Absolutely. When the rubber meets the road and it's crunch time and you're like, what the hell am I supposed to do in this part? It's kind of great because a lot of, with today's day and age, people are, I might go off on a tangent, but people never get bored anymore. And I'm not saying being bored. I'm saying when you're sitting in a room by yourself, those are the ingredients for innovation. When you're in a room full of 100 people and there's talking and there's no one shutting the fuck up and you can't think or you're thinking too much, you have to sometimes just let the confusion settle. And if you're in, your own space, a lot of the time the juices just start flowing better. Now every day, you walk into a train, people are staring at their phone. You walk into a train, people are on the phone, scrolling, tweeting, doing whatever they want, and they don't ever have the time to sit back by themselves and take a breath and think. And that's when you start daydreaming, and I'm not saying I was daydreaming while I'm drumming by no means, but when you let your mind get into that, free flow state, that's when the shit starts coming. So, it was a fun process to be, doing it on your own. But, at the same time, it was fun with the guys bouncing off them in a real studio with someone talking to you through headphones. But I very much so enjoyed this way that we did this one. So more of that to come.
Another thing I noticed when listening to this record, and again, maybe I'm crazy here, but the songs are as powerful as you would expect from Mutiny Within, but it sounds like you guys really amped up the production side of things and really sort of expanded the sound of what you guys have done before.
Big time, yeah. I mean, that's kudos to Chris as well for mixing and, doing all his, black magic over in England on this stuff, because I'm telling you, he's really, since Synchronicity with his, limited equipment that he had to work with to make the sound, our sound, he's really, come into his own as a producer. And, it's bar none, he could be put up there with the best of them now. He was even bouncing ideas off Colin Richardson for like mixing stuff, and he goes, oh, that mix is great. So Chris really refined and tuned up his skills with this, so hats off to him. But yeah, we all got to, for the production wise, adding Dan with that program, Omnisphere, and just the extensive amount of keyboard work that he did do, it really brought a whole new layered, added dimension to this album as opposed to Synchronicity, which was kind of lacking in the keys area,
Well, this is the day and age of the single, and people really don't build albums like they used to, but how much did you guys agonize over the sequencing on this one?
Right. We did. There's always a little bit of agony over the sequence. You got to have that wonderful, agony of setting up a track listing and what flows into what. I mean, that's how I appreciate that when any artist or any band does that, because you live in a day now, it's fucking the dollar menu, where you go to McDonald's and you get a fucking double cheeseburger for $1, and it's like 1. It's like, that's just how we live in a Spotify age, which is, in my own, brain, it's okay, whatever, you like one single, that's good. But I mean, it's kind of, it takes all the power and the emphasis out of a cohesive album, something that's a group of people that worked on a bunch of songs together for what's like a year or two now. So you want to take the time and flesh out, how does this flow into that? How does this one, bleed into the next song? It's not a haphazard, like, roll of the dice, like, oh, let's put Surface War after Reasons, because that's light, and then it's hard. It's like you got to take a little more thought. How does it flow into it? And then once we put together a basic track listing, we'll send it back and forth to each other, burn a basic, demo CD of the demos you have in that track order and listen to it and see how it sounds. I mean, you got to put that kind of time into it. Like back in the day with bands, they didn't just do no thinking whatsoever and just spit out an album. They did what, we were just doing. They take time to put, effort into putting a track list that makes sense and everything flows and it starts, one way and ends another way. And that's kind of what I like with a lot of albums. You just put it in and you leave it on. But now, like I said, it's like a vending machine society today. You just, I want $1, give me the $1. And that's the album. No, that's just the single album. It's like, all right, we get it. But sometimes you do have to placate to those sensibilities with the singles, since that's just how people are today. Our attention span is like a fucking goldfish. It's like 8 seconds, and a goldfish is like 9. I'm not even kidding. I think that's a real statistic. So you can't really grab someone by the hair and sit them down and say, listen to this album full way through. You have to hope that the hardcore fans and the people that actually like music are still into that, which they are. But, some people aren't. So you have to, put out the singles. I had to make some single artwork for those singles because Spotify has like rules where it couldn't be the same album artwork for the singles you release. But, you do what you got to do in those situations. So.
Well, and you just sort of mentioned or alluded to this again. You're segueing nicely for me. Thank you, Bill.
Of course, I'm reading your mind.
Each song needs to be able to stand on its own anyway, but you did a wonderful job of putting it in a sequence where it all still works together contiguously. But also part of the package, beyond the music and everything, is the imagery, and I miss that from when I was growing up. We don't get it as much now. You created such fantastic artwork for the albums.
Thank you.
I think you outdid yourself with this one. This has got to be the best of the three, with the whole package.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I agree, and not to toot my own horn, but this is my favorite piece that I've done in terms of like an album cover, or especially Mutiny, oriented album or any kind of artwork for that matter. I was literally working on this for years. This is after Synchronicity, when we were always talking about, let's do a third one, but then, a year went by and we kind of stopped, but then we're like, you know what, let's do it again, and it stopped. So this album cover has had about 4 or 5 different iterations, all starting from that one, very solemn, bleak looking futuristic face in the middle, and it all kind of spaced around that because I wanted to go for a very Prometheus, like the movie Prometheus style, almost like a futuristic yet like not futuristic kind of look, where it could almost look like ancient, but you could see how it's way more advanced than you would think. And that's kind of where I was going with that. Even I incorporated some elements of, black magic and alchemy and, changing things. And that kind of went along with the band because, if you're familiar with alchemy, it's like changing, elements to gold or changing one thing to another. Right. And with Mutiny Within, we really, we've been through the fire and we're out the other side, and we've become a more solidified unit as a whole. So the whole theme of the album cover was very much so influenced by my own, thoughts, but it's influenced as what we've become as a band kind of thing. So I incorporated all that into it. It took years. This is like I said, the 5th iteration of it. They're all very different, but all kind of based on this face. But slowly but surely, we got to where it's at, and I'm very pleased with the outcome.
Well, and that blends in with the way things are now in the music industry, is you need something that catches the eye and imagination, which blends into you guys have to make, and you guys made full use of social media for this record, and it seems to have paid dividends so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even not just, the album cover, it's all very thematic, and it's all very much one theme throughout the album artwork, because we did, the limited edition, press of like, a certain amount of actual physical CDs. So if you were lucky enough to order them first, you got one. But if you take the time to actually look through the booklet, like I designed every inner liner page, I designed the spine, I designed the back, I did the track listing back, I did the thank you page. So it's very much so an annoying fucking experience to design that shit on your own, because you could be making a nice little square. Whoa, look at that. Boom. That'll be the back of the CD. Perfect square, nice and symmetrical. Little do you know that you have not realized that you're not taking into consideration the dimensions of a CD case, where it has a spine that has to fold over, and it has the other spine on the other side that has to fold over, and then the tray on the inside. It's just so many more things than you would have to think in doing this all on your own. But I'm happy I did it, because I got kicked in the ass while I was doing it. But now I know that for the next few releases, it'll be a way smoother experience using the templates and stuff. But, usually bands outsource that stuff. They hire an artist and he does it. But it's very nice that we have the luxury of, I do the artwork. AJ does a lot of the song bass writing and bass. I do the artwork and the drums. Dan does the guitar and all the orchestration now and the keys. And Chris does the singing and writing his lyrics and produces and mixes the whole thing. So we're very lucky and fortunate to have, a few hats that we wear in the band, to make the final outcome that everybody hears.
Yeah, there's no weak link in Mutiny Within. Everybody plays such an essential role and does so much for the band.
Yeah, and I'm very happy at this point in our career that we came to that, equilibrium where we all know our strengths, our weaknesses, et cetera. We all have not just one, skill as if, I'm just going to drum, but I could do the artwork, as I, stated. So it's very fortunate when a band, and my advice to bands, if you could do it this way, do it. Get someone that has some of the equipment and the know-how, and tell him to, really tune up his mixing skills. If you have someone that's an artist, tell him to start getting on that digital art, get on that Photoshop and really refine your skills, because over the years, once you tighten that up, you have all the elements and the key ingredients to making a final product where you don't have to ask somebody else for help.
So, and that sort of brings me around to one of my last things is, we all know the story of how thousands upon thousands of people were illegally downloading the first Mutiny Within album, which cost you your record label thing with Roadrunner and nearly the demise of the band. Obviously, people are very much into supporting the bands through the online and the DIY stuff these days, but yet still, the album just came out and I'm already seeing it posted up to torrent sites. How do you guys deal with that?
Oh, big time. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's very annoying to deal with. The old statistic when our first album came out, we looked at the first week sales and they were very lackluster. And we were like, what the fuck is going on? We put out quality here. Not to toot our own horns, but we know the album was good. It's like, why? What's happening? And then lo and behold, we look at the first week, and on one torrent site alone, it was over 60 or 100,000 downloads of the album. So it's like, if those people that wanted our album so badly that they had to just go offline and rip it themselves, if they just would have spent the $10, $9.99, I think it was, to buy the album, it would have made for a more illustrious, foray into our career. But instead, we got the fucking shaft, like most bands do. This ain't the Bon Jovi days where, you go on stage with tight pants and everybody has one avenue to buy your music, and that's either seeing you live or buying the album. There was no Napster or fucking eMule or LimeWire. There was none of that shit back then. So people were relying on getting paid the normal way. You buy the fucking album. But that just doesn't happen anymore. And people now do not. And they just don't buy music. Music is more, it's like a commodity. It's like, oh, I'm entitled to have that. Can I have that? No, actually not can I have that. I'm going to take that. And that's just how it is. Like, you don't walk into a store and just buy something and just take it off the shelf and walk out. You get fucking arrested for that shit. But for some reason, music is morphing into this. It's like a bullshit. It's like a bullshit little category in life now that people barely give a shit about. Look at the music that's on TV and on the radio. It's garbage.
It is.
It's not even. It's devoid of any kind of human voice now. Anyway, so like when you sing and Freddie Mercury would go sing and belt his ass off, you would connect with that because you heard a human being vibrating his fucking vocal cords and making sounds, and that resonates with you. Now you're singing into a device that smooths everything out and totally takes the humanity straight out of it. So in a way, we're being kind of tricked into not connecting with music anymore because of technology. It's a double-edged sword. Right. Technology now lets us reach out to people, but it also fucks us in the end. So when all these artists are out now, and don't worry, you can hit the notes, kind of get there, and we'll smooth it out in post-pro. It's like, all right, like, whatever, man. Like, Michael Jackson didn't do that shit back in the day. You'd hear his voice do those high-pitched squeaks or cracks, and that was the real feeling and the essence of a song, and you connect with that person. Now it's like sound is very much like, it's like a fucking inaudible version of diet soda. It's just fucking garbage. People don't care. You put on the TV, anybody singing is probably lip syncing, and if they're not lip syncing, the original track that you're listening to on the radio has been auto-tuned. So being that people are buying less music, I feel like conversely it's like a vicious circle, because people are buying less music, they're not connecting to music. And they're not connecting to music because the state of the musicianship and the vocals and stuff is robotic now. It's not even being performed by a human being. I don't even mean to throw metal bands under the bus, but a lot of metal bands now don't even fucking record drums. They just program them. And that's like, what do you expect from your like reception of your music when the shit is totally void of any kind of humanity whatsoever? And it's all perfectly quantized to the grid, and the guy singing can't even hit a fucking note if his life depended on it, but they just smoothed it out in auto-tune. That's why the shit is going the way it is. People are just playing with it, and it's not really a meaningful thing anymore. Any kid in his basement can pump out a gent-sounding full fucking album if they talk about if the album artwork has geometric shapes and it talks about the cosmos and the name of their band ends in an S. That's how bands are now. And it's like, that's why everything, the state of music is just so watered down that it's just hard to reach what you want to reach. So it's just like, fuck it, do what you want to do for yourself. If you want to be a band, don't placate to everybody's, opinions on what should be there. Do what you want to do. And the people that like it are going to resonate with it and they're going to gravitate towards it. So those are the people that you want, because we just put a bunch of merch for sale, bundle packages, and people were paying more than they needed to, because a lot of the stuff was, pay what you want. People were giving us an extra $50. People were giving us an extra 20, saying, go get a fucking cheeseburger, or go, put it away. And we're like, you know what? You guys are the reason that people like us in our scenario that we're in right now choose to continue doing that. People posting all our pictures of the merch that just arrived with the album. And a couple of our fans that we've known forever just posted, check this out. And they bought every single T-shirt, every single sweatshirt, and like 3 albums. And you can't really appreciate that more, because that's what's keeping, bands like us going. But, it's falling by the wayside a lot.
Agreed. It's funny, you were talking about the automated drum machines a second ago, and I was like, right. I can't imagine anybody trying to replicate, like, the swing of a Bill Ward, You just can't get that.
You can't. And a lot of bands, it's great. You get one way or another, a guitarist writes a riff and writes a demo song, and he puts his own stem demo drums to it that, you learn. That's great. Whatever. You got to do what you got to do. But make sure you learn those stems, but then play it and record it yourself. Don't keep that fake shit, because there's a loss of humanity that when, especially with drumming, if the drumming is programmed, it is, maybe to me, because I can just tell, it's just so apparent that it's programmed that it's like, all right, I don't give this guy any fucking credit anymore at all. Because then you go see him live and he's a fucking slob behind the kit. He looks like he's never played in his life. Or his bass drums sound like fucking wet fish falling on the ground. Nothing is tight. Nothing is, lined up how it should be, because people aren't practicing their ass off. People are relying on machinery. When I was learning the original Mutiny songs, I was downstairs for fucking hours every day tightening that stuff up. And that's the baby mentality that a lot of people are just not doing. It's like, oh, I got technology to fix everything and smooth my curves, and that's it. And it's very, very apparent when you hear the final product.
Entitlement, laziness, and lack of drive. Okay, so before we get out of here, you have kept yourself busy working on other projects over the last few years, Blinded in Bliss, Angel Vivaldi, Vexed. And, you know, but Mutiny Within was sort of in limbo here and there. Now, are you working on some other musical projects, or are you focused primarily, aside from your day job, just on Mutiny at this point?
Well, for the time being, the Mutiny, recording process finally is done, and it's ramped up and it's ended. And now, in perfect timing, I'm learning new Angel Vivaldi stuff now, because we have, we're going to the machine shop for his new album, with Will Putney. We're going to machine shop to record his new album, I think, next month.
Nice.
So, I got a lot of stuff I got to be learning, now too. So Angel, after Mutiny's first album, when I got hooked up with Angel, that's always been another one of my mainstays where I put a lot of time and devotion into that stuff as well, because, me and Angel click with music and we really enjoy each other's styles. So we feed off of each other in that way. So that, I would say, Mutiny and Angel are my mainstays with music. But, I also do, any bands out there, guys, I'll do some session drumming for you right now. No problem. Let's go. Come on. I got the home studio. You need drums? Let's do it. But, like you said, Mutiny's my main. Angel right now is, one of my mains as well. That's where I like to stay in those terms. Other than that, Vexta's fallen off, and Blinded in Bliss, we had our one album. That's it. Right. So those two right now are kind of defunct, but,
still good
that's about
stuff,
it. Those.
I'm sort of surprised that you and Mike LaPond are in the same backyard. You guys haven't done anything together yet.
Who is that now?
Mike LaPond of Symphony X. What a rhythm section that would be.
Oh, yeah, my God, what a dream come true. Hello. Yeah, I remember back in the day, me and AJ saw Symphony X at Starland Ballroom, and I was just blown away, the musicianship and how tight they were. That's what bands, if you're in a metal band or a rock band, go see bands like that. It makes you so in awe about the technical ability to stay that tight. And, whether it's a Monday or a Saturday or the crowd is big or small, they play so tight. And that's, really what people need to aspire to, to listen to. And not to listen to by any means, just to listen to for mental advice on what you should do as a musician. So, yeah, that's absolutely, Symphony X was one of my favorites, along with, they always reminded me of a little bit of a heavier Dream Theater with a little, you know what I mean?
Right. Bill, again, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm glad we got a chance to catch up.
Always good to talk to you, Rustin. It's been too long.
Absolutely.
Later, Rustin. Thank you.